Now, up until this point in time, before classful networks were developed, when it was back in the old days of just a single 8-bit number for the network, there were no governing bodies. So you could run across this situation right here, where more than one company use the exact same network, and that would lead to some confusion. Like in this particular case, router A is receiving a packet with a destination address of 2.2.2.2, and as it just so happens, there's two different companies that are using that exact same network. Router A is confused. He says, where do I forward this packet to? Should I forward it to router B's network or router C's network? So as networks continued to grow, and especially as they developed this whole classful scheme, they said, look, we need some high-level organization to monitor and regulate the use of IPv4 networks to ensure that when one company is given an IPv4 network for use, nobody else in the world will get their same IPv4 network. So they will be uniquely registered and allocated to various different companies. And so this is what we're left with today as a result of that. Our current IPv4 addressing structure. So at the very top of the food chain is the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. So this is the original top-level organization that was in charge of allocating all of the IPv4 and currently IPv6 networks downstream. So they own them all. They also do other numbers, not just IPv4 numbers, but for example, in your studies of your CCNA, you've learned that at layer 4, there are TCP and UDP port numbers. TCP port 23 for Telnet, port 80 for HTTP, and so on and so forth. Well, the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority also regulates those numbers. If you happen to be a software developer and you're watching this and you come up with some creative new idea for a new UDP or TCP application or protocol, and you want your own unique TCP or UDP port number, you will need to go to the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, and they will allocate a number for you. So they're the top of the food chain. Now, if you're a company, if you are an enterprise, for example, you're an enterprise company and you need one or more networks for your own use, you're probably not going to go to the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. Instead, there are other organizations beneath them which are called Regional Internet Registries, RIR, Regional Internet Registries. And as you can see here, there are 5 of them throughout the entire world. You've got AFRINIC, which stands for the African Network Information Center. You've got APNIC, which is the Asia Pacific Network Information Center. RIPE NCC, I probably won't be able to do that justice because that's actually French. I can't even pronounce it. Réseau IP Européens or something like that. It's basically French for European IP networks. And then ARIN, that's what we use here in North America. That's the American Registry for Internet Numbers. And then lastly, you have LACNIC, which is the Latin America and Caribbean Network Information Center. So these are all considered as regional internet registries. And then beneath them, you have your internet service providers like Comcast, Time Warner Cable, Verizon, Sprint, and so on and so forth. And at the very bottom of the food chain is the end users, you and me, who are working for a company that needs an IP network. So as an end user, either a home user or you're a network admin for a company, when you need to get an IPv4 network, you've basically got 2 choices. You can get it from your ISP, or you can go directly to the Regional Internet Registry. When you go to now you might be wondering, well, why would I do one over the other? Let's say you go to your service provider. Let's just say Keith's service provider. And I go to Keith's service provider and I say, hey, I need some networks from you to assign to my company. So I get some networks from them. They're basically leasing that net. I'm not really buying it. It's like they're renting it to me. And I'll probably have to pay them a monthly fee, maybe a yearly fee, so that network is registered as mine, belonging to my company. So great, I'm working along, but over time, I start getting a little irritated with Keith's service provider. You know, it goes down a lot. I lose my network connectivity. Whenever I call their customer service, I'm on hold for like 45 minutes on end, and then I get somebody who's totally rude and abusive to me. And eventually I get to the point where I say, you know what? I'm done with you. I'm not going to use Keith's service provider anymore. I'm going to move to a different service provider. I'm going to move to your competitor. Well, guess what? If I got my network from them, my IP addresses, now I have to basically give it back to them. I can't take it with me. And now when I move to another service provider, I've got to get a whole other range of IP addresses, which is going to be a huge pain. That means I have to go log into all my routers, all my switches, all my laptops, all my DHCP servers, and spend a considerable amount of time readdressing my entire network. And if we're talking about a large network with thousands of employees and devices, that's going to be a monstrous pain. As an alternative to that, I could go directly to my regional internet registry. I could contact the American Registry of Internet Numbers, ARIN, get a subnet or multiple networks from them, and now regardless of which service provider I'm using, it doesn't matter because I got my network directly from my regional internet registry. There's actually a term for that. They call that provider independent addressing. If you ever hear that term, provider independent addressing, that means you went directly to your regional internet registry, got your address, your IP networks from them. What's kind of interesting though is that here we are in 2015. If you go onto ARIN's website as an example and look up how to do that, you'll see that it's virtually impossible these days. Because IPv4 has been around for so long and the growth of networks has been exponential every single year, pretty much almost all of the IPv4 addressing space is almost used up. If you go to ARIN's website, it'll show you how much addressing space is currently available, and there's almost next to nothing. So these days, getting provider independent addressing is kind of tough. You got to provide some really strong justification to get that from your regional internet registry. So 95% of the people these days who need networks are forced to go to their service provider because that's the only people, those are the only companies left that have free networks to give out. Also, you can see there's a link at the bottom of that page. If you go to that, you will see which one of those regional internet registries were allocated blocks of networks from the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, which is kind of interesting because that means that if you ever see an IP address, you can figure out which portion of the world owns that IP address. Like if I'm going to a website and I know that their IP address begins with 99 dot something, I can go to that website and I can see, oh, the 99 block was allocated from the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority to LACNIC. They own it. So that website I'm going to must be somewhere in the Caribbean or Latin America. It's kind of interesting. You can play around with that.